Roar, growl, snarl, bellow.
Welcome to Paleobites, the podcast that, like the hypothetical asteroid that possibly caused the late Devonian extinction, has left no impact on the world. My name is Matthew Dahl, and each week, I and a rotating series of guest co-hosts talk about and rate a genus of prehistoric animal, be it dinosaur, mammal, arthropod, and so on. This week, I'm joined by a very special guest who actually has some worthwhile experience and qualifications for this show, which is crazy. Like, how dare this show actually be legitimate? It's Michele Hollow. How are you?
I'm doing good, thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here. Yeah, no, when I put my podcast on that thing, is like, hey, I'd like some co-hosts, send this out, and then you show me your qualifications. I'm like, wow, this could be really cool. So here you are. And tell us a little bit about yourself real quick. Like you wrote a book and you through your studies for this. Yeah.
First and foremost, I'm a journalist. I mean, I was one of those weird kids that when I was little, I knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. I either wanted to be a writer or a veterinarian. I love animals, love animals.
That's exactly like my girlfriend. So she wants to be, well, she's currently a localizer. She knows Japanese, so she does Japanese to English localization. But then she also wanted to be a writer, and she wanted to be a vet tech too. So
it's a great profession. When I was little, I grew up in the Bronx in New York, and my mom enrolled me in zoology courses at the Bronx Zoo. So Saturday mornings, I was the only kid there. I was like 12 years old, and I was surrounded by adults. But at the end of the talks, the zoologists would bring out the animals, and we got to interact. And in the summer, I went to Central Park Zoo and was a tour guide there.
Oh, nice.
Because it was like my happy place.
Oh yeah, for sure. I've thought about like either volunteering like at the local zoo here, the Denver Zoo, and but then one, the drive is a little bit far from where I live, and two, as someone with some sensory issues, I'm sure the smell can be overpowering.
I didn't mind that at all. I mean, I really didn't. I mean, I was just so happy. And that kind of reminded me of Mary Anning. I got to write a book about Mary Anning called Jurassic Girl. And here was this 12-year-old girl. She was 12 when she discovered the ichthyosaurs.
Right.
She didn't mind working on the beach, digging for fossils, getting sand and dirt in her boots and her fingernails. It didn't matter. So that was something I can kind of, didn't bother me being around the animal.
See, that's the thing. Like, I guess this is part of my autism in me, but like, I don't really like getting the grit on me. So like, I appreciate when other people do it. So because like, I've like that's why I'm not really a beach person. I'm more of a pool person because of the sand. So.
Well, I mean, I have a cat, and if I have cat hair on me, that's all the more
true.
powerful.
My girlfriend has several cats, so definitely know that for sure. But yeah, no, that's really cool. And for those who don't know, listeners, Mary Anning was a big name in paleontology in the early 1800s, and with her extensive research on ichthyosaurs, plesiosaurs, ammonites, all that sort of stuff. And I mentioned in an episode earlier to this, and Michele has since corrected me on this in a previous talk we had. I said, "Oh, fun fact: the idiom "she sells seashells by the seashore" is about her," and you're like, "Actually, no."
Really, I was bummed about that because I was going to open my book with that. I thought, how cool is that? I just do that. And I spoke to, as a journalist, I interview people day to day and ask them, well, why did you do that? What is the purpose of that? Or what other questions I have? But I get to talk to people. Mary Anning, this happened in 1811. I don't have a time machine. I couldn't go back in time.
Unfortunately,
so I interviewed the researchers at the Lyme Regis Museum. Mary grew up in the town of Lyme Regis. It's a coastal town on the Jurassic coast in the UK.
Yes.
So I thought, I'm going to open with She Sells Seashells, and because this is a middle grade book, and I figured everybody pretty much knows that tongue twister.
That's the first tongue twister I ever heard. So,
but it wasn't the researchers at the Lyme Regis Museum said, nope, she didn't sell seashells. She sold ammonites, and she did not. That wasn't about her. So
that's a shame because that would have been cool.
I know.
But
I
instead,
know.
we're stuck. The only Mary Anning thing on pop culture is that movie Ammonite that you don't like, which I haven't seen. So
It's okay. It's not supposedly, and I've been looking at that up. She and Charlotte Murchison,
yeah, who
the story's
the
about.
movie portrays them as in a romantic relationship. Yeah.
Right. And, I don't, it sounded like they knew each other, but they weren't close. And supposedly she worked for them. It depends. That's the problem. History is fascinating. And when I was in school, I loved history and English. Those were the two classes that I excelled in and I really enjoyed.
Nice.
But it's hard to see, is this true? Right now, if I'm working on a story about something, I can call up and ask somebody and say, did you actually do this? And get a yes or no response.
Right.
So I don't think she had that kind of relationship, which is fine if she did.
We're like, how dare she go to hell? Because that's a sin. No, but yeah,
absolutely not. Yeah.
Well, because as far as I know, she never married, did she?
No, she was single. Life there was really hard, especially if you were poor. She was one of 10 children, but back then. And here I'll sound political again. They didn't have vaccines, so.
Oh yes. Well, that's why they had so much children back then, because the odds were that most of them wouldn't make it.
She had an older brother, Joseph, and he was the one that found the ichthyosaurus head.
Right.
He survived, and so did she. But there was another child named Mary that was older than Joseph. She died at a very young age. There was a fire.
She had a sister named Mary, but there was before she was born or something? Or?
Right.
So she was the new Mary in the family. That's interesting.
Right. It's weird.
Yeah, that sounds like Mary Anning was like a replacement. It's like, I don't know how I feel about that.
She had this really great relationship with her dad. From what I've learned, her dad, he was a carpenter. He didn't seem to like his work. If he could, he would spend all of his time at the seaside digging for fossils. He loved it. He taught Mary everything. He taught her how to pick and find and know what to look for when fossil hunting.
Nice.
He gave her his tools when she was very young. I think she was about 5. And these are sharp tools to get the dirt off of the
like
stones
chisels and such.
Right. And her mother, Molly, was more of a worrier, and it's like, no, she's too young. We're not ready.
Right.
So she was about 5 when she was starting to learn about fossils, and she was brilliant. She really was.
Oh yeah, for sure. And her research was impeccable, and it led to a lot of great creatures, such as the one we're going to talk about today, which is not Ichthyosaurus itself, because I've unfortunately done an episode of that already. And that one I did talk about Mary Anning quite a bit, and that's where I gave the as of now untrue fun fact of the seashells thing. So, but I'm calling it back now. But we're talking about Temnodontosaurus, which is one of the ones that she uncovered the fossils of, but she did not name it.
Right.
So it means cutting tooth lizard. Type is an ichthyosaur, a group of marine reptiles with contentious relations towards other reptile groups that lived in the early Triassic to the mid Cretaceous. All of the earliest forms we have found are already so derived that it's likely there were some early species present in the Permian too. We just haven't found them yet. Size 30 to 33 feet, so that's 9 to 10 meters long, with skulls that could get up to 6.2 to 1.9 meters long. Pretty big boys for sure, much bigger than the likes of Ichthyosaurus and such, although not nearly as big as some of the early Triassic monsters like Shonisaurus and Ichthyotitan.
Yeah, I was looking it up, and one description of the Temnodontosaurus said, imagine 2 full-grown giraffes, one standing on top of another.
Yeah.
That's how tall it was. Or the other example was, I don't know if you've ever gone bowling, but the half of a bowling lane is 30 feet. Yeah.
Really? A bowling lane is 60 feet long? I didn't know that. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. I love bowling. Although I'm not very good at it. I wanted to get a turkey I've gotten so close to getting a turkey several times. I've gotten 2 strikes, and then I panic on the final one and get 9. Never had that turkey yet. But no, I didn't know that was that long. Wow. for in terms of like another animal, though, I feel like 30 feet is about the length of an orca. So that's probably maybe more 1-to-1 comparison of how long it is. So it was a carnivore. Time, early Jurassic, 201 to 176 million years ago. Location, England, Germany, France, Luxembourg, and possibly Chile, although the evidence for the latter country is very fragmentary. I gotta say, this is the first time on the show I've ever had a creature from Luxembourg. you know, what comes to mind when I think of Luxembourg? Absolutely nothing. I have no frame of reference for that country in my mind.
Well, David Attenborough did a short little YouTube video on them, and he talks about the 30-foot one that was found, and it's on the bones are found in a museum now. Their house in a museum in Stuttgart.
Nice.
But Mary's was 17 feet long, the body, which is pretty remarkable.
Oh, for sure. That's still pretty big. That's about the length. Actually, that's still longer than a grown ichthyosaurus too. So, like, and that one's a semi-adult or yeah.
And what's amazing is, like, when she found it, nobody knew what it was.
Right, because they had no frame of reference. Like,
right. They thought maybe a crocodile. That was like the one word that was, or one animal that most people thought it was related to.
I saw that someone even thought that it might have been a weird salamander thing too.
Possibly.
Yeah, but like, although not many amphibians are in the ocean. Apparently there is one. I looked this up once. Like, is there a marine amphibian? There is one that lives right now. Forget what it's called, but so most of them are freshwater.
But the Attenborough video talks about the 30-foot long one where the eyes were the sizes of footballs.
They're 10 inches wide. I have that in my notes here.
And the teeth, and they can rip apart pretty much anything.
Oh, no, for sure. They were ferocious creatures, ferocious predators for sure. And yeah, they're not as big as, say, like the mosasaur, but I feel like that would be worse for us humans if we were in them, because since they're not as big, like a mosasaur, to us, a mosasaur is like a teeny tiny snack. But for like a Temnodontosaurus, we might be a full meal. So it might be we might be more worth its time. That's why I say, like, T-Rex might be scary, sure, but Albertosaurus is even scarier, even because it's smaller, and therefore be more likely to view us as a meal.
And I just saw the new Stegosaurus at the American History Museum in New York, and it's not that big. This is. I mean, it's amazing, but it's
Stegosaurus could get about this big, 30 feet long, but like that one might have been juvenile or something for sure. Although some Stegosaurus were quite small. Like Stegosaurus itself was by far the biggest. Most of them were like 15 feet long, like the Tujiangosaurus and Kentrosaurus. Anyways, so described in 1899 as Temnodontosaurus. Its first fossils were described much, much earlier, though, because by 1889, Mary Anning would have been an old lady if she was not dead at that point, I think.
No, she died in the 1840s.
Oh, wow. She was young. Dang. Yeah.
So she was born in 1799. So she was about 47, 48 when she died.
Oh, wow. I have about 15 more years for me, and then I'll be the same age as her. Anyways, pop culture appearances, Jurassic World, the game, a mobile game that I am addicted to. And that's all I can find. My usual resource on checking animals in pop culture has really slacked off of this particular creature. I did check. It's not in the game Ark Survival Evolved, though. That one has Shastasaurus or Shonisaurus in it, though. So that's another ichthyosaur. So apparently, like you said, the eye for this thing is 10 inches wide. It's the size of a football. And this could be considered, some people think it might be the biggest eye of any animal ever. Like even bigger than like the Colossus squids. That's the next biggest. Because it's 10. That's crazy. Like that makes people think maybe they're like deep sea hunters or like night hunters or something.
Possibly. I mean, if you just going under going in the ocean and seeing the creatures, people talk about extraterrestrials out in space.
Oh yeah,
I think about them in the ocean. I really do.
Oh no, for sure. And like the deep sea, it's so deep that the sun has no presence down there. So the only heat that is allowing these animals to live is from the vents. And so this creates this interesting scenario that if the sun were to like go kaput, like not necessarily go super low because it would be fried. Let's say it just vanishes. and then most of the Earth would freeze and we'd all die. But down there, as long as there's geological activity, they'd be fine. Which is weird to think about. Like, you'd think, oh, the sun, it's important for life. And yeah, it is. Guess it is in terms of like having a planet that can support life and elseways, and also like, have the planet orbit something or whatever. And so it's good for starting life. But down there, they figured out how to do it without it, to the point where like, do you know what rogue planets are?
No.
Rogue planets are starless planets. They're just floating out in space. We have evidence of some of them. And because if one of them has geological activity, they could have life like in the oceans down there. There'd be a solid ice surface, but then underneath where there's geological activity, where it's melted the water, there could be life. It doesn't even need a sun. It's incredible.
It is. It really, I mean, I was just reading today about Antarctica, and there are places on Antarctica that are snow-free. There's no ice or snow there.
Oh, yeah. Antarctica's a desert. People forget that because it's cold, but there's no precipitation there at all, basically. So. Yeah,
no, I originally thought it was not a sheet of ice, but I thought it was snowy and icy, but there are obviously areas that aren't.
Yeah. Well, and also like up the edges for sure, but then like in the dead center, it is icy, I guess, but it's not like recent ice. It's like it's ice that's been there for maybe hundreds of thousands of years because it's just never melted. So yeah, but then back at this time, there were no permanent polar ice caps. So like when Temnodontosaurus lived around this time, like there were dinosaurs in Antarctica, like Cryolophosaurus, and there would be plants. Like even in the South Pole, there would be plants, like forests, because there was no permanent ice caps. So there was no permafrost.
No, it's pretty amazing. I mean, there are dinosaurs out in New Jersey.
Oh, yeah. They were everywhere. Although the interesting thing about dinosaurs in New Jersey is that the fossil evidence we have for dinosaurs in the eastern U.S. is very minimal compared to the western.
Sure.
Yeah, because of like the way, apparently from what I've read, it's because that area was susceptible to glaciers, particularly in the Ice Age. And that meant that any fossils that might have been left there got withered away.
Well, I mean, we have my favorite statue now. If you come to New York and you go on the High Line, if you ever come in, I'll take you on the High Line up through next year. There's this huge, giant statue that this wonderful artist, sculptor created. It's a giant pigeon, and it's something like several stories. It's like maybe three.
It's a pigeon
stories high. It's quite high.
It's like
that's it. That's it. And its name of the name of the pigeon is Dinosaur.
Nice. Well, I mean, they are dinosaurs, so.
Yep. So if you think that there aren't any dinosaurs, go outside.
Or in my case, go upstairs to the cage and where I have a little cockatiel. So, which I would have brought her down because I hear her chirping up there. Cause I want Matt. I want my owner. But she would make too much noise during recording, so we'll get her after recording. Anyway, so the thing about this, Temnodontosaurus is historically the very first ichthyosaur to be scientifically described, which is neat. Although, like I said, it wasn't described as Temnodontosaurus. And also, because I got confused by this, I was like, if it was the first one described, why are they called ichthyosaurs? And why not like Temnodontosaurus? And why was ichthyosaurus a different thing? Because usually when a creature gets assigned a species, that's the name that sticks. That's the name that takes precedence. Yeah, so that's why like a Patasaurus a Brontosaurus became a Patasaurus again, because originally it was called a Patasaurus. And then the Brontosaurus was like a mishmash of other things, apparently. So... and then they're like, okay, well, originally it was called Apatosaurus, so that name sticks. But then they've found recently that several Apatosaurus skeletons are slightly different enough to be their own genus. And they're like, well, Brontosaurus is available. so now Brontosaurus is back.
I also Googled, the difference between the two. And it just said, it's, as you said, an extinct genus of the ichthyosaur.
Right. So yeah, no, Temnodontosaurus was found by Mary Anning. That's why it's related to this. The fossils were initially found by her and her brother.
Actually, she suspected her father saw it. He was climbing. It's on the cliffs, and I got very lucky. I have a cousin who lives in the UK, in London, and outside of London, and she took a boat trip to Lyme Regis. and she was with her husband. He's wearing a bright blue sweater, and in the background, she had him in the film in the frame, and you can't really see him. You just see this little dot of blue. He's in there just to show you the size of the cliffs. This
Oh wow!
man,
Yeah, no, it's incredible stuff. Those cliffs look very ancient indeed.
It's huge. I mean, because when I was originally putting this book together, I thought, okay, because I grew up in New York, and
Yes.
our beaches, we're not known for our beaches. We have great things here, but
we're
not
known.
the beaches.
Yeah, no, we're known for the ocean. I guess we're known for the Hudson. Like,
Oh, it's beautiful. The Hudson is absolutely beautiful. But
yeah. No, it's not like people like go to the beach on the shores of Liberty Island. Like,
right.
so.
I mean, this is so. As I said, her husband, he's not a tiny man, but all you see is this blue dot.
Yeah.
And you have to like really look for it
Right.
against the rocks. And
That's
her
cool.
father climbed up the rocks because he saw something, and he fell. He that killed him.
It killed him. Oh no.
Yeah.
Wow, that did.
And she was 11 years old then. And
Dang.
Mary, I mean, they were poor to begin with, but she helped her family. She was the one that went out every day, and she wanted to. I mean, it seemed like this was her passion.
Yes, exactly. Because because if there was something my dad was making me do, and then if he died from it, I'd take it as a sign, like, oh, I shouldn't do this, but she didn't. Like, so
no, he loved.
she
her father loved it. I mean, that's as I said, if he could have quit his job as a cabinet maker, he would have. He would have loved to have been at the beach, and she was at the beach, rain or shine. She was struck by lightning once.
Oh, whoa! I didn't hear that.
When she was a baby, the person that was holding her actually didn't survive, but she did. And supposedly she was this weak, frail little child, but the lightning helped her. I don't understand.
What? It gave her superpowers? That's like a cop. That poor person that was holding her was like her human shield. That's incredible.
But they took her back to the house and bathed, dipped her in water over and over, and that brought her back.
Resuscitate her, kind of, because
right.
I'm sure with all that electricity, her heart, especially if she was a baby, her heart would have been like, so.
But she was meant to be there in the sense that she loved it. She was so passionate about it. Her brother seemed to be, he was like 3 years older. He seemed more determined, and where she loved what she was doing, but he was like, well, let's be practical.
Right, because that's like you're saying with their dads, like, oh, she'd love to do this, but the cabinet maker is what it is. And that's how it is true for so many things. It's like so many people can't do their passions as work. And honestly, sometimes doing your passion as work can ruin the passion you have for it. So many people have their passions and then their job to make the bread.
Well, he was lucky, Joseph. He found an upholsterer. He became an upholstery apprentice, and this was in Lyme Regis, and it was fortunate that they were in Lyme Regis and not in London, because you read any of Dickens and hear about the factories and how kids as young as 12 or 10 would work standing at their station for 14 hours a day.
Dang.
In certain places, if you didn't do the work correctly, you could get whipped. It was really horrible.
No OSHA or labor laws back then.
Right.
Really.
Yes.
So. Oh man. No, that's.
But he went with her on his day off to the beach, to seaside, to go fossil hunting too. And they turned their front room into a little shop
where
and
they
Mary
did not sell she cells, but they sold other things. Oh man. But yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah.
But the thing with Mary was, when she did find the ichthyosaurus, and she got help from people to extract it from the cliffs. I mean, this was like a big deal. But she didn't get credit. The person who she sold it to got written up in the scientific journals through the...
I'm assuming the good old classic early 1800s misogyny had something to do with that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's like a woman couldn't do something. Blah, 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 blah.
No, first of all, she was 12 years old, so...
A woman, child, a little girl.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah,
right. And she was poor. So that was
poor.
also,
wow. It's like, what? Don't know
That's not good. No.
don't know which box to check for the hate crime list.
Well, also back then, if you went to school, you had money because you paid for school, and she had no formal education.
Right. She just did field work only. Yeah.
Yeah, she was very well read. She had a good friendship with Elizabeth Philpott, who was also an amateur paleontologist. And back then, I had learned that the word paleontology wasn't even invented; it was geology. But,
well, because exactly, for sure. That was such a young field, and that's one of the things what happened here, because like I said, Temnodontosaurus, the fossils, that was the first one described, but it wasn't described as Temnodontosaurus, and I don't think it was described as ichthyosaurus either. Oh no, it was. But it was described after Ichthyosaurus itself was also described. So
correct,
because like it was called Ichthyosaurus plateodon, which is not the type species of Ichthyosaurus. Before that, I guess it was described without a name. I think is kind of what I could find.
Well, as everybody was saying, maybe that's a crocodile. That was the one that most people said the name, and obviously it wasn't. But
and then when they decide, maybe it's its own species. They called it before it was called Ichthyosaurus, it was called Proteosaurus. And which means like early lizard or like first lizard or something like that. So like but then Ichthyosaurus came in and Proteosaurus became a fun thing in science called a nomen oblitum. I've heard of nomen nudum and nomen dubium. But nomen oblitum is interesting. Usually the first name assigned to the genus takes precedence. So when Ichthyosaurus plateodon was revealed to be its own genus, Proteosaurus would technically take precedence, and so it would be back to Proteosaurus again, but it was declared by the scientific community as obsolete in favor of a protected name, like Ichthyosaurus, which is called a nomen conservatum. So, where a name is so special, you protect it. Like that even if they violate some of the rules that make it illegitimate within like scientific nomenclature. Like Archaeopteryx is that way. So
what got me with Mary's story was, can you imagine discovering something that no one's ever seen before? The name, it doesn't kind of matter in a way. Yes, it's nice, but
well, yeah, I'm just talking about that in terms of Temnodontus specifically, yes. But no, and yes, the find itself for sure.
I think that's what got me hooked was imagine discovering something that no one's never seen anything like this. What is it?
For sure.
That's what got me very, very excited and made me send a bunch of questions to the researchers at the Lyme Regis Museum.
Being the pioneers of a new field of science is so interesting for sure. And that's what's same with like dinosaurs too. Like when they first found it, like the first three dinosaurs were Megalosaurus, Iguanodon, and Hylaeosaurus, and they had them for years. But the term dinosaur wasn't actually coined until decades later. They just called them these great or old animals, like the reptiles. But yeah. So Proteosaurus came back, then eventually officially was retitled Temnodontosaurus in 1974, well after Mary Anning. And it's been that ever since. But yeah, the original fossils were found by Mary Anning. And that slice is still good for fossil hunting for ichthyosaurs to this day. I recently did an episode on Ichthyotitan, which is another big ichthyosaur from back then. And its fossils were first found on that same beach, I believe, or similar beaches to it, in May of 2020. Based on that time frame, I'm assuming the family was like, okay, we're stuck in quarantine due to COVID. Let's go to the beach.
Well, right now you can go to Lyme Regis and go fossil hunting. And if you go to the Lyme Regis Museum, there is a whole Mary Anning wing. Oh,
for sure. That's really cool.
It is.
She was a really wonderful, really great person. Of course, had to deal with like not being taken seriously, as were a lot of women at the time, especially uneducated women. But no, she's thankfully, her history has been kind to her and her studies and her image. So,
and she pushed other women to pursue similar scientific fields.
I'm sure there's a through line you can get to Mary Anning and then like say Ellie Sattler in Jurassic Park, Laura Dern's character. So.
Well, I was very disappointed about Jurassic Park. I did not, when you hear the dinosaurs make those roars, and just learned that they don't make those roaring sounds.
Oh, well, some of them are even creepier though, because like they don't roar, but some of them like T-Rex might have bellowed, but like in a way that was so low that you felt it more than you heard it. And that to me almost sounds scarier. Like what if you're walking through a forest and you feel this rumbling and you don't see it? It's like, oh my God, there's a T-Rex here. like I don't see it, I don't hear it, but I can feel it.
It is amazing. I mean, it really, really is amazing. I fortunately got to interview this paleontologist out in Montana, and she was telling me when she was a little girl, like most kids, every kid goes through a dinosaur phase. They're like, they just
mine has never ended.
That's great. That's really great. Well, hers did for a while, and then when she was in high school, she went to this event where they had animatronics dinosaurs, and she was like, I love this. I got to go into this field. And she told me about her worst day on the job out in Montana. She goes, I'm out there in the field by myself, and it starts to hail.
Oh, no.
So I cover myself with this blue tarp, and I discover these dinosaur bones, and I'm thinking, oh, no. And she said, gosh darn it.
Who knows? That's actually what she might have been said, something a bit more colorful, maybe. Well,
that's what she told me. But anyway, she goes, how the heck am I going to carry these out of here? So she marked the area and, went back. And
that's no, I can never be an on-field paleontologist. That sounds exhausting, but I really appreciate the work they do. But
can you imagine your worst day making a discovery like that? I don't care about the hail and stuff about that. It just didn't.
That's better than my worst day. My worst day as a writer, there's dark thoughts involved, but nothing productive happens. Worst days of paleontologist. Yeah, I guess that's true. That's true. Anyways, all right. So, well, let's rate the animal 1 out of 65 million. That's how we end the show. I'm gonna rate it 36 million. It's cool as a creature. I mean, I'm talking about Temnodontus specifically itself because I think Mary Anning gets a 65 million. She's not something we rate, but her work at 65 million. But Temnodontus itself, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like an orca-sized thing. It's kind of cool. It's kind of a middle boy in ichthyosaur. So I'm gonna give it like a 36 million. What about you?
Oh, I would infinite number.
Infinite million. Infinite. Wow, that's the highest thing on the show. It can't even be higher. So good to know.
Just as I said, I was so impressed with her, with Mary Anning, and just how she just triumphed. All these men would say, no, 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 you can't. And she's like, I
can and I will. And she did. So
she did.
Yeah, exactly. So keep that in mind, listeners. Follow your dreams. All right. Well, that's it for this week. If you want to get hold of the show, you can contact me at palebytespodcast@gmail.com for any general questions. Co-host, if you want to relay any message to them. You can follow me on social media at Matthew Donald, creator on Facebook, and Matthew Donald 64 everywhere else like Blue Sky and TikTok. Where can they find you?
I am on Blue Sky also, and I do have a website called JurassicGirl.com.
Yes.
And they can email me there. There's the email. It's JurassicGirl1811@gmail.com.
Good to know. Yes, I will read your book. I probably should have read it beforehand to seem more professional in this, but I will read it soon.
If you come to New York and if you want to tour the High Line, I will show you the pigeon. It has to be by next, before the end of this year, because it won't be up after that. But it's
well then I gotta get going for sure. Gotta see Pigeon Rex.
Let me know. Seriously, I'm serious because I enjoyed talking to you, and I love this pigeon. I really do. So.
We can do a pigeon episode at some point. That we've done.
Hey, look, I'm in New York. I grew up in New York. I'm in New Jersey now, but we don't have a lot of wildlife around us. So the
urban area is kind of its own biome now. You got the pigeons and you got the rats and the raccoons. I don't know if you get raccoons up in New York. We get them here in Colorado, but
we have in New Jersey. Okay.
Oh yeah, in New Jersey. That's right, New Jersey, not New York. But yeah, I apologize to all.
I know you guys get conflated. I'm actually New York Heart because that's where I'm originally from.
That is true, but I guess that is true. Okay, all right. Also have a book series on Amazon Megazoic available for print and Kindle. There's no Temnodontosaurus in it. There is some mosasaurs in it though. I don't really focus too much on the sea life in those books, but I might do that. That might, if I ever go back to the world, that could change. But anyways, well, that's it for this week. Thank you so much. Thank you much for joining us, Michelle, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. This was great. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks for listening. If you want to further support the show, you should subscribe to my Patreon at patreon.com/MatthewDonald, where you can get ad-free episodes, and you can get the raw, unedited episodes, and every month you get bonus episodes where we talk about pop culture featuring prehistoric animals. We've talked about Jurassic Park, we've talked about the obscure strategy game Dino Island, we've talked about Friends, we've talked about Google Chrome, we've talked about Dinoverse, we've talked about Terra Nova. Who knows what we'll talk about? It's a mystery every time. So go and check it out at patreon.com/MatthewDonald. Thank you so much for listening, and have a good day. Chomp.